Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Brent Hazard for the Brent and Malcolm Show. Once again, Malcolm's out campaigning. Please keep him in mind when you're going to vote on August 8th for supervisor for District 5. But as always, I'm joined by Mr. Wilford Beal. And we are honored to have back the owner of We Believe Studio, Socrates Garrett. Mr. Garrett, welcome back.
Good to be here, Brent. Always good to be in the studio with you and Mr. Bill.
Before everybody wants to talk about garbage, but there's a couple things that happened. Since you kind of shocked me when you threw up some ladies basketball watching the Ole Miss female basketball. Did you watch the Final Four of the championship game?
I did. I've never been so amazed with the quality of female basketball. I had never watched them play this much in the past, and I'm just blown away with the quality of that programs and the athletes. You know, I think the young lady over at Iowa, Miss Caitlin or whatever Caitlin, is could play on the NBA Pro Team, men's basketball team. She is that good. And I just say to the LSU Tigers, nobody gave you a chance to win the national championship, and I've never seen such an impressive array of shooting as the LSU team, as a whole team did, from the three-point line and beyond, quite frankly. So I really enjoyed the women's Final Four. I did not really watch Connecticut and San Diego State last night.
I would like to make fun of you, but that's exactly, it was anticlimactic when I was trying to watch that. Mr. Bill, did you have a chance to watch the women's basketball? Were you busy reading Socrates and Aristotle and Plato? Just to clarify, I wasn't talking about his book. Go ahead.
It's coming. It's coming.
I watched it, and the game that told the difference was Iowa State was up. Iowa.
Yes, sir.
State.
Iowa. No state.
That's right.
It's okay. I mean, that's like saying Mississippi State up there, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You're educated. You look good.
University of Iowa.
Yes, sir. Iowa.
Iowa State was where Booker T. Washington got George Washington Carver from, so that's why it stays in my mind.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Iowa was really up to beat South Carolina.
That just went over Brent's head, the Booker T. Washington reference with George Washington Carver.
Literally did not. Literally, you racist bastard. It did not.
I just thought it went over.
Literally did not.
Well, that's good. That's wonderful. That's what, Mr. Bill, I just wanted to make sure he got that.
Yeah, he's a scholar. They got a statue up there of George Washington Carver. But Iowa.
I did not know that fact. See, I don't have to be a narcissist. I can admit that I did not know. I know who those gentlemen are, but I did not know the connection.
Oh, you knew that the Booker T. Washington got George Washington Carver from the University of Iowa.
Iowa State. You didn't know what he's talking about either. So go ahead and jump on that raceway. Pull that race car.
No, I'm impressed that you knew that.
I just said I did not know the connection to Iowa State.
Okay.
You evidenced your statement that you did not know.
Well, the two gentlemen that he named were absolute genius.
I know who they are.
Okay.
That's like saying, do you know who Einstein
we don't
is?
teach.
Never heard of Einstein.
We don't teach black history in Mississippi, so I didn't know whether you got it, where you would have learned that. And so, that's why I had to make
literally from a book that they taught me in.
Literally? In Greenville?
In Greenville. Washington School Academy.
Well, they're not teaching it anymore,
I haven't been to Washington School in quite a while.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bill, but
and that's a long story about why he was at Iowa State. I won't get into that, but
thank God
this is not a lecture.
The hell ain't with these two.
But Iowa was ready to beat South Carolina. South Carolina was flat. South Carolina had horses, but they were not ready for that game.
Now, you're talking about the Final Four. For those who do not watch basketball, South Carolina went 36-0, and not only went 36-0, they ran women's basketball this year. And there's a coach who used to be a WNBA player, Dawn Staley, who is a fabulous player, Olympic award-winning player, gold medal winning. And as a player, she's nowhere near the coach. She went to South Carolina. It's like, y'all come on, and built a machine and it's taken over. But like you said, in the Final Four, everybody thought LSU's coach said, yeah, South Carolina will be there, and it'll be between Virginia Tech and us to be there. But you can guarantee South. And Iowa came out
ready to play.
And they also sagged in, which was incredible. They looked at South Carolina because, like you said, and I want to get into how you describe those ladies, they sagged in and just said, shoot it. And South Carolina not missed shots. They didn't take shots, which was strange because to me, South Carolina is one of those programs where the 8th person probably could start. You know what I'm saying? You'd be like, yeah, who's that? Well, that's the triple all-state, and she's the water girl over here. But, I mean, they're that loaded. But it was interesting. But I agreed with you. Playing South Carolina than LSU. Did y'all see the little social media videos, the walk-up, the warm-ups they were doing? Did you see them?
No, I didn't.
I've never seen this, and I think Memphis does it a little bit, where the new thing is they start filming as you walk out. But the first one I saw was South Carolina. They had a little white girl carry the speaker, and they're all sitting there with a little two-step, hitting that clap together on that beat. And I went, oh, Lord, they're about to destroy.
They weren't ready to play.
Oh, yeah, and then LSU did it. But I don't think any team could go South Carolina, LSU back-to-back like that. Not making an excuse for anybody, but that's just such a – I mean, those are two best teams probably in the country. Yeah, and I mean, and like you said, they're skilled, but they're just tremendously athletic everywhere. And like you were talking about, Socrates, the women who was hitting that three-pointers for LSU, the blind-headed girl and the Asian girl, they came off the bench.
They did.
You know, they were like, hard turn, woo. And that's what I was expecting from South Carolina. But, I mean, just very impressed. Now, let me get to what I want to get to with you, gentlemen. You called the ladies of South Carolina, and you're talking about the center and power forward for South Carolina. You called them stallions.
Yeah, they're thoroughbreds.
And that's when we're describing athletes or talents. And would you agree with me? It's dogs. It's beast. And it's not a negative. When you see when I see, I don't want to speak for y'all, but when I see a guy out there dunking or someone hitting that shot, he's on fire. You're in beast mode. You're a monster. But it's come up because South Carolina would just rebound, and like you said, they out-athlete you in a lot of ways, not criticizing their skills, but those are just Olympic-level athletes. But there was some criticism in describing women, and also African-American women, as stallions or as monsters or as beasts. Do you see, what is your opinion on that?
No, they're talented. And like I said, they had the talent. They just wasn't into the psyche.
No, but I'm talking about like, okay, how are we supposed to, you don't want to offend anybody. How do you celebrate an athletic woman fairly? Because I saw a podcast talking about LSU having a bunch of dogs. And they weren't talking about, in a literal sense, they were talking about hardcore athletic defenders. Like they overwhelmed Iowa. But I can see where some people would be offended calling a female athlete dog. But the person, it was Pat McAfee, one of the more popular podcasters out there. But it was no negativity whatsoever. Where do we celebrate the athleticism but have to be careful about them being ladies?
Yeah. Yeah, well, a term we use for super talented athletes has always been thoroughbreds, because you don't put a donkey in the Kentucky Derby. You have to have a thoroughbred to run in the best race. You have to have a thoroughbred.
Steal that from me? I think you stole that from me.
I probably did.
I swear you stole that from me.
I was taking notes. Yeah.
I usually talk about my dating life, that I've in the past I've bought a lot of donkeys and tried to get them to win the Kentucky Derby, and then got mad at the donkey. Well, it's my fault.
Yeah. Oh, you said they're the gift. They just super.
And I mean, you're not being critical whatsoever when you call them what you're saying is you've gone to a level higher than human when you say thoroughbred or
higher than average.
You tell me, Socrates.
Well, I think you have the ability to distinguish, how to characterize or how to address athletes. I'm impressed with Charles Barkley, who's known to say anything. Whatever comes up comes out most of the time, but he doesn't describe women in any derogatory manner. So I think that,
But is calling a woman in an athletic sense a dog, or calling someone...
that's offensive. You
don't
call women dogs or bitches. That's
I didn't know one said bitches.
Well,
a female dog. No, but a female dog.
So we're going to make the assertion when you go there with them. When males call each other dog, that's my dog. That is in the fact that we are running in a pack, that we are a gang of wolves and we out to hunt and destroy and kill. And so in that sense, that would not be offensive to the male gender. But if you apply that to females, then you're going to run into some problems. So you can use terms like,
can you say beast?
That's a thoroughbred. You use the term stallion, but you can't use the term monkey, and you can't use the term gorilla.
Okay, first of all,
there are things you can do and you can't do.
No one's sitting here saying that monkey and gorilla are acceptable, calling African Americans that.
Okay, I'm just saying you have to have some sense of balance and some understanding of the sensitivity of the African Americans when you want to categorize them by some animal in reference.
Because I'm glad you brought that up. Let me go ahead and say this. In 1998, maybe 97, 98, Ole Miss had a decent little basketball team. We were like top 15. And this was when Pat Summitt was Pat Summitt. And we went and we played with some of the lady basketball players at Ole Miss, so we went to go support them. And Pat Summitt came in there. I want to get them all correct. Shamika Holesclaw was the bad girl. Tamika Catchings was a bad girl. And then Randall, that was their top three. And they came walking in. Now, right now, they are rated by some stats as the second best team ever. They came walking in. They went 39-0 and won the national championship. They came walking in.
This was, what school was this?
Tennessee.
Okay.
Pat Summitt. They came walking in, and it was like a pack of wolves. And if you came here right now and said, Brent, the first evidence of time travel was 1998, and they took these advanced humans back to win a championship, I'd be like, I can believe that. Mm-hmm. But this is where it got interesting. It was like 20-7. Ole Miss at some point had trouble bringing the ball up to court. And like I said, we were ranked 17. I think we went to the NIT that year. But, I mean, I have never seen a more dominant team in my life, because that's when the Yankees were winning. And I was like, they don't have anything, because this was greatness. But then this is when you knew something was different. They came off, and it was not a field stadium. It was about half field, so you could hear the coaches. Pat Summitt was cussing those girls like they were behind. And they never celebrated. I mean, they ended up winning by like 25. Oh, they shook everybody's hand. They never got high. They never got up, and they just walked out like, check, the invasion. And I mean, like you said, it was an advance, because to this day I've seen Alabama football. I've seen Nick Saban. They beat you with size, but you don't feel like it's just complete domination. I've seen Steve Spurrier come to Oxford and put 70 up, and they're passing the ball over. Domination. But I'm telling you, that one game was more dominant, or the greatest assembly of talent I've ever witnessed. And it was, in my opinion, you had the talent, but then you had the demand of one of the greatest coaches of all time. But I want to call them a pack of wolves, because they just Ole Miss scored like 2 or 3 points, and they were like, yeah, this stops now. And I don't know if y'all have heard this story or not. If you ever have a dog and a wolf together, even if they've never seen each other, the dog instantly knows it's not that. That's the next evolutionary step, and I ain't that. That's the feeling you got here. But once again, you don't want to disrespect anybody, but you want to celebrate the greatness of the team. Mr. Bill, your point. Or your opinion.
And I agree. They come at a high level, and they try to call them gold chip, blue chips now when they look at the talent. But when we played baseball and a guy go on the mound and just breathes 100 miles an hour, we say he got the gift. Okay, he has the arm. If a guy's tough in football, tough in basketball, we used to call him, I'm talking about going back when you don't know when I was born, we used to call him a Viking.
1912. They might not Damn, man, ain't hard.
Yeah, we used to call him a Viking. He's tough.
White or black Viking? You called whites and black Vikings, or they're just the Scandinavian?
We just called the Vikings because we used to say that's
they're
a tough
warriors.
kid. They sleep on rocks and eat raw meat. They Vikings. That's what we call the tough guys.
Before we move on, and we're about to take a break, y'all tell me if I'm being right or racist here. Did y'all see the scandal about the hand signal? Or the hand waves at John Cena?
I didn't see that.
Okay. Caitlin Clark, when she beat Louisville, when she was, okay, do y'all know what this means, first of all?
No.
John Cena, WWE wrestler, he's now in movies. He had a move where he would put you on the back, he'd body slam you or something, then before he'd drop an elbow, he would scream, "You can't see me," and do this. So when you see someone doing this, they're saying, "You can't see me. I'm too advanced, I'm too good, you can't see me." So now some of the athletes will play. Well, the white girl, when she beat Louisville, who had a white trashing talking girl, the white trashing girl was like, "I got you," and Caitlin Clark turned and kind of whispered to her, but they picked it up in video afterwards. "You're down by 15, shut the hell up." Didn't do anything, but, they had to do some lip reading and stuff like that. But on the way off the court, Caitlin Clark went, just like 1-2, and that's all she did. Now, when LSU won, Angel Reese, their big center, chased down Clark and was like, "Oh!" And then she hit her with the which means I got a championship ring. Now, it blew up because a lot of people attacked Angel, and she said, "I'm just doing what she did to the last team." But no one wanted to talk, and to me, I was a little disappointed. You won the national championship. I don't care who the hell I beat. I would want to be with my family and teammates. But the woman can do whatever the hell she wants. She's, she might have deserved a tech if it was a close game. But once again, when the winners go the spoils, it didn't offend me that much. What no one wanted to say is, and this is what I want y'all's opinion on, this is how white women trash talk. This is how black women it's just two different cultures of trash talking, right or wrong.
Well, I'm not sure of the cultures and trash talking, but I
So you're saying there's no difference between white women and black women, culturally?
Fundamentally, I think when you are in, as you say, beast mode, and you're the best athlete in the world, you basically treat everybody the same. Your trash talk is the same regardless to the color of the individual. And we saw that with the greatness of Larry Bird and in that instance. So I don't think there's a difference there. I think that certainly you want them to recognize that I am the national champion, that I'm a superior athlete, that this was my day and not your day. And so you do that in a lot of instances. And so I see women's basketball and women's sports in general including the magnificent careers of Serena and her sister on the tennis court.
Venus is the name you're looking for.
And Venus on the tennis court, that they are
He's not
dominant.
giving me credit, but he was jumping down my ass.
They
about
are
George
dominant in the sport, and we start to see them do chest bumps like the guys would do. They start to do all of the chest bumps, etc., which is a sign of dominance, that I am dominating in what I do. And back even in my day at Alcorn State University, Coach Cassom says we're going to kill
coach of whom?
Cassom.
What
Alcorn
sport?
State University football.
Football. Go ahead.
We're going to kill a fly with a sludge hammer. This is our theory. This is what we're teaching you to do. You have no mercy. You have to be able to dominate the person in front of you. And so athletes are taught to do that, and they're taught that very young. And so I just see the trash talking of the women and is pretty much the same as that of the men. It's you got to recognize who I am. You got to you don't have to submit, but you have to acknowledge.
Oh no! Look, and I was fine with it. The issue, and let me say this: Kim Mulkey, who I did not, that's the LSU female coach, did not like her at Baylor for some reason, and she was allowed, but she started wearing outrageous clothes as an LSU coach, and she got paid to come to LSU, but she literally said, I wear gold and I wear purple because that's what we do in Mardi Gras and that's where I'm from. And I was like, hell yeah. And she says, I've got athletes with personalities and I'm going to let them have personalities. But is my characterization of what happened, it wasn't anyone was improper or more proper than the other. It was literally the difference between how white women trash talk versus black women trash talk.
Okay.
No, did you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I see what you're talking about. Trash talking is trash talking.
Well, I didn't see what he was talking about, Mr. Bill. I said they all trash talk the same.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We heard you. You don't have to translate them. You ain't that slow.
But I didn't see it as being trash talking. I just I got the last laugh.
Well, I love trash talking.
Right.
But if I'm beating you by 20, it's not that I feel sorry for you. I don't think I've ever trashed. I guess maybe some of my friends, if we're playing or something, and they had a bad game. But when I know I've won, I'm looking for the family and stuff like that. But go ahead.
Yeah, but when you get to that level, it's a big girls' game. It's a big boys' game. In Little League, they score 10 a run more. They so many points. They cancel it because they don't want the kids to get down on themselves. But at that level, you're supposed to be at the top of your game, and however it comes, you're supposed to be able to deal with it.
You got to, and that's one of the things that the coach of LSU said about the game between Carolina and Iowa, is that she said that Carolina didn't take the shot. And to your point, Brent, that they were sagging in all right, and they had a freshman point guard out there, and she didn't take the shot. And she was open, and so even our players would just do that to us, and we're not going to even guard you. She was a freshman, and then at the very end of that game, she did hit 3 threes in a row, and so I think there was some miscoaching going on with South Carolina at that point in time. So the coach at LSU said that we will take the shot. Just don't guard us and see what happens. And she said, we will take the shot. And then at one of the intermissions, her comment was very interesting. She said, it's very physical out here tonight. And she said, I just hope they call it the same way on both ends of the court. She said, but it doesn't matter to us. We can play it either way.
We're going to have to take a break. Our producer is about to kill us, but we want to get through that. I will say the greatest line I saw on social media was an African-American LSU fan who said, tell Larry Bird to take his daughter and go home. I thought that was one of the greatest lines. But we'll be right back after these words.
Yeah.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
SGE COVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government, delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com.
We're coming back, but just to sum up what we were talking about, the great thing about the game was not only was it our women need to play sports, and scientifically it shows the more you play sports for women, the less domestic violence you have, the less drug use you have, the more confidence you get. So, I mean, we need to start supporting that. But to me, we were just watching the Celtics and the Lakers, and where you were geographically, socioeconomically, either you went to Magic Johnson or you went to Larry Bird, and you hated the other one, but not you ain't going to try to kill them. But it shows sports does better when you have heroes and villains depending on who you were. And I mean, to me, it just meant more money for women's sports ultimately. And I think we get too sensitive. But anyway, I want to move on. I don't know if we have garbage pickup right now, Mr. Bill, do we?
Well, we have some volunteers got together and going around picking up garbage. And
are you one of them?
No, I didn't pick up garbage today, but I'm going to a platform this evening to listen about the problem.
Okay, but I mean, the problem is no one's picking up garbage. You gonna grab a couple of bags?
I'll grab a couple of bags if I can, throw it on the back of the truck and carry it to the dumpster, because Hines County was talking about putting out dumpsters in areas to help the people.
I've heard the city was going to talk about that. Interesting you brought that up, Mr. Bill. I heard the city might put out some dumpsters for the people. Have you heard that, Socrates?
No, I haven't heard that. I've heard that city council people that are requesting some assistance in their wards by asking people to voluntarily put out some dumpsters of the business community. I've gotten several calls. But as far as the city itself, there has been no official position as it relates to how the city is going to deal with this issue. So I think that we are in the very beginning of a very trashy situation.
Yeah, how long have you been rehearsing that one?
It just popped up.
Oh,
just
the
like
hell
that.
it did. Okay, here, and let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and state my position. My position right now, this is the mayor's fault, and I'll tell you why. There's been a court case. Now, so we're clear, if I was on the city council until one thing happened, I would have voted for Richards. I don't know if y'all noticed this. One of the city councilmen said, who are your subcontractors? Who are you paying under this contract? Now, let's go back a little bit, okay? I used to do work for the AG, okay? The previous AG took the position that if they hired me, that contract was public, and whoever I hired was private. And that's his interpretation, and no one challenged it. Right now, that's being challenged in court on another case, on the Entergy case. I don't know if y'all remember, or you probably weren't here. When did you get here?
I wasn't here.
Entergy was accused of doing what, I just looked it up, Enron was doing, selling electrical power between its subsidiaries and doing a markup. And they sued them, and there was a settlement or something. I saw this the other day in court. I did not learn this when I was practicing with the AG. But the first attorney on the contract didn't pay the second attorney. So the second attorney suing the state. What's interesting to me is I don't believe, and that's my basis for making this statement, I don't believe you can be hired by a public entity and then turn around and hire another entity through the contractual rights I get from the city or the state, and that second contract not be available for public scrutiny. because legally speaking, I'm hiring you through the power I get from the public entity. I think that's what makes it a public contract. And I applaud our city councilman for asking that. And I would have changed my vote from Richards when Richards says they're not going to reveal their subcontractor, because to me that just seems shady.
Yes.
Mr. Beal.
I agree, especially if you're using public money, federal money, because everything is transparent. It's what you call the law that allows you to go in and see these things. So the challenging of that particular practice is determination so that everybody will understand, because even though the law requires that you have transparency, you're going to have some that's going to say it's my business, but it's still public money, and the public has a right to see its tax dollars at work.
Now let me go ahead and say this. This was the next criticism I got and the AG's office got. There's an article about me, because I never gave money to get the first few contracts from Attorney General Hood, but after I began winning money, I started giving $10,000, $25,000 to him. There's articles that I tried to buy justice, or that me and my friend, the donors. Here's what happens. When I was trying to take on Microsoft or take on some of these corporations, one, you want trial lawyers. Those are Democrats. Two, you want someone who understood the same philosophies as Attorney General Hood and myself. Those are Democrats. Three, there's a certain way you want to trust everybody in the room. You don't want to bring in a Trump supporter, theoretically, to sabotage your contract, or someone you just haven't worked with. So I can see where people would want to end and maybe put some other people behind that first contract. I understand the criticism because I experienced it. But for it to be illegal, it's called a quid pro quo. Here's $1 million, I need that contract. If I say, here's $1 million and believe what you want to, that's completely illegal. Now, some people say to us, it's, 6 of one, half a dozen another. I didn't write the law, but no one is ever giving contracts out to people that campaigned against them. So we have to have an understanding of that and a sophistication of that. I'm not going to criticize someone for saying he's the best qualified. Oh, also he campaigned, because let me tell you the first thing Haley Barbour does. Haley Barbour doesn't hire Democrats. Haley Barbour hires, I think his nephew got a big contract. Charles Barbour, is that correct?
I'm not sure.
I do believe he got a big MEMA contract. I'm fine with that. I'm fine as long as you comply with all the laws. As we're talking about basketball, to the winner goes the spoils. You not only do you have to give these contracts to the people that have supported you, or you're going to lose their support. These are the people you know best. Socrates, your feelings on Richards, and Richards not revealing who's. Well, let me flat out ask you: are you one of these subcontractors they won't reveal?
No, but let me back up for a moment. I do not agree with you that this is the mayor's fault. In any way, the mayor went through several processes to bring forth the best qualified vendor to the city council, and for whatever reason they rejected FCC, they rejected Richards. The only vendor that they appear to will be able to entertain is Waste Management, and that is problematic in itself. So I think.
Okay, let me stop you there. Why is that problematic?
Well, because the city council cannot contract steer to a particular vendor. That's outside of their purview. And
that's been litigated and won.
And they should not do that. And so I don't agree with the assessment that this is the mayor's fault.
Whose fault do you blame?
It is the fault of the 4 council people that continually vote against the low bidder, which saves this city a tremendous amount of money. And in an 85% black city, to have an opportunity to have a black prime contractor should be a big feather in your cap. It's something that you should be proud of, not something that you're fighting against. So I have to say that Kenny Stokes, Aaron Banks, Vernon Hartley, and Ashby Foote are on the wrong side of this issue. and they tremendously oppose the mayor in everything that he's trying to do. Now, as it relates to subcontractors, no, I'm not a subcontractor on this contract. I wish I was, but Richards didn't choose me to be a contractor. He didn't contact me and put me in that position. But I'm available, Mr. Richards, if the opportunity will arise, then you need my services. Now, you cannot dictate as an elected official who subcontractors are going to be. If you are found to have done that...
No, they're not dictating. They ask a question. Who are they?
Well, they already know. They asked the question because they were grandstanding. They didn't ask the question because they didn't have the information. The information
That's what a lawyer does. A lawyer won't ask you a question he don't know.
How the hell am I getting brought into this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
They already know. Just answer the question.
That's right.
They publicizing it is not what you're supposed to do. In terms of who are the subcontractors, elected officials cannot dictate who subcontractors are. You can't. That's outside of your purview, your ability to do that.
What if I put in a contract, and this was in my contract for the state, and look, all the people I worked with, this is what really infuriated me to a certain degree. All you had to do is go down and get a pleading, and so everybody, all the law firms were on the pleading. Why couldn't I say I have to approve who you work for in the contract? Legally, I can do that as an entity.
You can approve, but you can't select.
I'm not trying to select.
Okay. Well, as long as you don't get in the business of selecting subcontractors, that's why we think it's odd that the mayor's close friends are subcontractors to Richards. That's why he's catching some heat there. But his position has been that he didn't put them there.
Okay, hang on. You're saying he should. Why?
Should, because the city has policies and statutes as it relates to contracting. And you hear me say it all the time, performance standards. If they ask you a question, who you giving that contract to, and you say it's my business, and it is disclosed that they violate that policy, you kill the whole contract.
When the city submits a contract out for bid, it says that we want minority participation. We want X percentage for African Americans. We want X percentage to females. We want X percentage to Asians. We want X percentage of Hispanic. These are our goals. They can't enforce it, but they establish the goals. They never say we want this minority contractor, this woman contractor, this Asian contractor.
That.
They can't do that.
I understand that. But where nepotism and racketeering takes place, that's supposed to be covered under the statutes and the policy of the city. And what I'm saying here is, if they ask the question and they're able to bring that forward, then you're going to have issues.
Now, what you're talking about racketeering, you're talking about when someone takes a straw man, and let's say I'm the real power and I choose you, who you just started your company and you don't have any experience, and I'm putting you up just to hide me. That's where you get into the fraud. Mm-hmm. That's where you get into the money laundering. Mm-hmm. And that's where you get, and that's what Donald Trump is being basically indicted mm-hmm. for, mm-hmm. because he's saying this money, and let me go ahead and say this, for money laundering, y'all need to read those statutes. I used to get calls from Rankin County. Rankin County used to make people put up cash bonds. And they say, come get Mr. Socrates Garrett's bond, his cash bond, we got a check for you. I would never take that money, because not knowing where that money came from, I'll put it through my trust account and give it back to him. The feds could indict me if it was drug money for money laundering. Mm-hmm. So that's where, now there's been no accusations of that. There's been, to me, the primary participant in completing the contract is Richards. I want to make that sure. I have heard in previous contracts who would provide the garbage cans, and that's about all the subcontract. And I mean, it was rumored to be on some of these contracts, the M-Bar owner's wife is what I heard. Now, I haven't seen any of that. That was just some reports out there. Now, here's my question to you, Socrates. Is it really something to be proud for if we're hiring African Americans in another state?
Yes. We experience the same conditions in other states as we do in Mississippi. So the first priority ought to be to try and hire Jacksonians. African American businesses should be given every opportunity that they can. And then second to that is Jacksonians, and that's a Jacksonian businesses, whether they're white or black. We should do everything that we can to keep business at home. And then if we have to go outside, the same priority moves again. Is there an African American firm out there in Atlanta that we can get to bid on this contract? And so that process goes that way. African American Jacksonians, business for Jacksonians to stay in Jackson. If you got to go outside, look for African American businesses out there with capacity before you start looking anywhere else. I just think that makes good sense.
Before I go to Mr. Bill, how much state tax does a Louisiana African American owned business pay to the state of Mississippi?
You talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
The same amount that Waste Management has paid and the same amount that every other white firm has paid for the last 400 years. And while we're having this conversation today, only because...
So wait a minute. So you're saying that Mississippi white firms do not pay state taxes to Mississippi?
No more than the ones that were doing business here, that wasn't domiciled in Mississippi.
So out of state white
they were
firms,
doing the same,
correct.
absolute same thing.
You're correct with the analysis of Waste Management. They're
Absolutely.
not a state Mississippi.
Absolutely the same things.
Go ahead. Do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
Okay.
Well, that ranking, he went African American firms, then he went Jacksonian firms, and then he went out of state African American. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That's right.
Okay.
Do you agree or disagree?
Well, there's a lot of evaluation there. If it's federal money and you're looking for DBEs, any DBE in the country can apply here at Jackson.
Now, what's a DBE?
Disadvantaged Business Enterprise.
Okay. Now, is that a statute, or where are you getting that terminology?
That's federal.
Federal.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's federal.
What's the definition of disadvantage? Because you just dropped a term on me I'm not familiar with.
They're not making the money. They have a dollar amount that their assets totals up to be.
Is race one of those factors in disadvantage?
You got white women disadvantaged businesses.
Okay. And I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's just
really
federal law.
okay. So if it comes on income only.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it doesn't come on income only. He said white women.
That would be income.
No.
Can white men own a firm and be a disadvantaged firm under what you're quoting? I don't know.
It's not determined by race.
I'm asking.
I want to make sure you get this right.
Okay. Is race a factor, yes or no, in your understanding?
Race is a factor.
Is that your understanding?
Minorities.
Okay, that's all I'm looking for.
It's the minorities.
Is some knowledge.
But I'm trying to share some with you,
Okay.
to impart a bit of knowledge to
Okay.
you. And you stayed in their grade 3 years. But I get it. So the deal is that white females are disadvantaged businesses, not because of their race. You see, they're white. But they are a DBE as well as a black business. They both qualify as
Is it because
DBEs.
of your race or gender, or is it because of the income you're making compared to the market standards?
It's because, on one hand, when it's African Americans, it can be simply based upon your race, because we have proven that you historically have been discriminated against in this country. Therefore, you qualify as a disadvantaged business.
Whether you're a billionaire or make a dollar, correct?
There are some upside limits. If you get to your net worth gets greater than $3 million, then we look at
that's what I'm looking at. Okay.
different way.
You won't be a disadvantage.
Can a white business ever be a white male-owned business ever be a disadvantage, whatever, DBE?
No.
Okay. So minority status, gender
Well, a white
status.
female-owned business can.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So okay. Continue, sir. Thank you. That was very educational. Thank you. Good. Okay. So you got DBEs.
Okay. When you start talking about...
No, well, before we go on, is there a DBE status before you apply? Like, are you already
You must
a
be
DBE?
certified by the federal government.
Okay, and that's
Before
a
you apply.
process.
Uh-huh.
Okay, how long of a process is that?
It's not long once you send your paperwork in.
Okay, go ahead.
And the federal government certify you. Okay, I understand, and understand from me, I'm looking at the management perspective because you hear me talk about performance standards all the time. If I can't get performance standards in Jackson, then that's not where I'm going. I got to have performance standards because the people in Jackson are suffering because of inadequacies that we allow elected officials, contractors get in. Case in point, the city give a contract to a vendor, and then halfway through the contract, they'll come back to the city and ask for more money because they didn't expect to have the problems they had. Performance standards.
Now, are you talking about specifically Jackson, or are you talking about you've seen that happen nationwide?
I've seen that happen in the city here.
Okay, have you seen it happen nationwide? Or does that happen in your experience like with Detroit and some other areas?
It happens nationwide, but it doesn't happen as often as I have seen it here.
What happens, let's say in Detroit, if someone experiences, and I mean, it could be like the interest rates. I talked to a business friend of mine, and he was trying to build something in Tennessee. And they were going to do a lot of apartments near a college because the town just got a factory, a car factory. Well, due to the unforeseen high rates of interest, because it's never been seen
Cost
ever.
of material.
Just borrowing money.
Okay.
His investors said, we're out.
Okay.
So you do have some variables like that change.
You do have change orders.
Okay. Is that what you're talking about, or are you just talking about people who either didn't plan well, bid low?
I'm talking about didn't plan well, bid low, because when you start talking about low bid, okay, you got to understand where utility lies and how you're going to serve the common good of your people. Being cheap ain't always the case. I'm sorry, I go back biblical to the Old Testament. God didn't tell Solomon to build a temple cheap.
Now, well, let me tell you this. I've never heard this till I practice law. Someone pulled me aside, and I was dealing with this old attorney, and I won't say his name. They said he starts negotiating at the contract. And I was like, we negotiate a contract. He said, that's not what I said. He said, Hazard, when the money comes in, he's going to reach across to you and say, well, just put it in my trust account. Just trust me. And then he's going to start negotiating from the contract. And I was like, say that one more time. And he says he will get all the money, and then he will turn to you and say, I know I'm supposed to pay you half, but let's be honest, you didn't do half the work. And he said, Hazard, it don't matter if you do 75% of the work. He starts negotiating from the contract. And what I found out is there's an older group of attorneys, that's their business. You and I make $1 million, you get 500, I get 500. He sees maybe I can squeeze an extra 100,000 out of you. That's just business. And afterwards, I had to threaten him with litigation. It got ugly. And I got my money. And then when somebody does me like that, we're done. He comes up the next day and brings me donuts. I threw them away in front of him because I thought they were poisoned. We're out of time. Well, Secretary, I'll give you the last word. We're running out of time.
I just think that Mr. Bill has, said some things that implies that Jackson has a higher degree of corruption and or change orders or bad contract letting, and he speaks on the degree of performance and quality and performance and those kinds of things. And it would appear to many of you out there, because we're in an 85% black city, that we might be talking about the administration in Jackson. I just want to remind you that African Americans in Jackson, Mississippi get less than 10% of contracts for goods and services and less than 2% of contracts from the state of Mississippi. So any neglect or any substandard performance that has gone on in this city and in this state is 98% of that has happened with European companies. And 90% of it is happening with European companies.
Companies in England?
In Jackson, Mississippi, in Caucasian
white companies.
White companies.
Okay.
And so I want to make certain that we are not, indicting or implying that African Americans are doing something different.
Well, let me ask you, are you talking about the current administration or just administrations in general in Jackson?
I'm talking management. Okay.
Are you talking about the current administration or administrations previously, for clarification?
I'm talking about down the line.
Okay.
I'm talking about down the line. And I'm not talking about African Americans not being competent. And I agree, as he says, that the majority or the other persuasion has most of the contracts. I keep talking about management. I keep talking about performance standards, because we are elected to protect the citizens of Jackson. Now that we're managing it, we can require a better delivery of services from the majority of the other persuasion.
Now, we got to end now. We actually blew through a break, but we'll be back next week. 2 parting shots, or 2 parting thoughts, not shots. If you believe in Socrates or his argument that you should invest in African-American businesses first if you're African-American, I would recommend you buy coffee, Earth Blend coffee. You can find it on the website. You can Google it. But if you're like me and believe we should invest in Mississippi companies, I would also encourage you to buy Earth Blend. People ask us all the time, how do we get out of this? We have to start looking at models like New York, Silicon Valley. Those are 2 of the premier cities, and they invest in their own. They dare to be great. They pay the sweat equity to be great. They come together and understand that if you're hurting, ultimately it's going to hurt me. Whether I like it or not, whether I like you or not, it doesn't matter. We're only as great as the weakest link. Finally, we've been talking about government, local, state, past administrations, present, city council. One person that you can count on being in government on August 8th, Malcolm Johnson. Hopefully he'll be back next week, but keep him in mind on August 8th. So sweat equity is something Malcolm understands. Brent Hazard for my guests. Thank you. See y'all next week.